Hello and welcome to Ivory Blush Roses. Today we're doing episode 6 of our stitching rambles. We're going to be finishing up the very last seam on the Autumn Runner project, and I'm looking forward to getting this one finished and out of the way so we can move on to other projects. I'm so grateful you're here with me today. Get your stitching projects out and let's get stitching. Well, as I work on this piece, I realized that we talked about what seams to do on it on the last episode, but I want to take a look at it again as a whole and see if there's any other options. So let's take a look at it here. We have the seam to be done is this really long one over here on the left. This piece is not completely square, so it's going to need a little bit of adjustment on both corners on that side. But what I want to do is think about if I want to do one long seam on this, or if I want to do a broken up seam like I've done in a couple of other spots on here. Now I do have a couple of pretty long ones on here, and I'm wondering about this one, or if I need to break it into two. Now when I look at the far end of this, it is already pretty simple. There's not a huge number of beads, and I think when I look at it now, I realize that it's gotten really heavy right in here. This side needs to stay pretty light, but there's this huge patch of pale fabric, and it's going to need something bold on it to help it stand off of that fabric. So I went looking through my threads. I wasn't quite happy with what I had, and I found this thread, and it's a lovely orangey mix, and I'm looking at it and thinking that this would actually be a really nice thread on that orange, and then I probably need to pair it with a nice brighter green. I have this one that I thought might be good. But the other thing that I have on this end of the project is there's this metallic thread. That metallic thread is wonderful. Unfortunately, I only had the piece that I used here, and I used the entire piece when I stitched that, and if I remember right, barely had anything extra. I do have the one that I used here, and I really like that, and I do have more of that one. It's not quite as orangey as the other one, but that's this sparkle braid. And so I'd like to see if I could incorporate that into this seam. Now when I went looking for threads, I also found this stuff. This is a chain thread that's got some metallic in it, and it's kind of got the orangey colors, but I'm looking at it and thinking the orange colors are a little too reddish for this project, and so it seems out of place to me when I put it on here. I don't think I'm going to use that after all. I want to look at my options. So we have our 3 threads that we know we want to use. By showing it this way, we see what I had done on the other side, and then we can see what I have to work with on this far side. So I want something that's in keeping with this, yet will balance and not be too heavy. So no heavy beads or really heavy silk ribbon embroidery, because there's none of that down here. So I had originally thought about doing this, but that's another really heavy element, so it really weights this end of it, and I don't want to do that. And this just seems too plain to me, and we've done other similar stitches, you know, right in here pretty close, so I don't want to do that. I thought about this doubled herringbone on that, and it doesn't seem right to me. It's, again, seems too weighty and not quite what I was after. And so the other one, because we've done all of these, and so the other one I thought about doing was this one here. So I'm still using this book because it was in her Facebook group that I started this project, and so that's why I'm continuing to use this as reference, just so I'm using things that I have not commonly used before. So a lot of these are very similar to things I've already done, or I've already done these, so none of those. I know we looked at it last time and we thought about doing this one, and that might actually be good because it would balance well with this seam and it would be very similar. It does have some beads, so I could do some small beads on it, but instead of having 2 layers of herringbone like this one does, it's 1 layer of herringbone, and then it has straight stitches with beads on it. And then it has some little crossed herringbones here. So it'd be a little different, but it would still balance. Now, the question is, do I want to do that all the way across, or do I want to split this? And truthfully, I think I want to do it all the way across. The other one I was thinking about was this one, and the more I look at it, I think it's a little too plain for that long seam. I think that it won't have enough interest, where I think this one will have more interest. So I think this is the one that we're going to do. So the question is, do I want to do the main stitch in this orangey and then the little straight stitches in this? Or do I want to do, say, the herringbone in this and then the little straight stitches in the metallic? But I just don't think that's going to be quite enough. But what if we took that metallic and mixed it with that, similar to what I did here? Or is that too much the same? I think that's too much the same. Alright, let me just look at beads that we used here. I think we have to stitch the seam before we can pick out beads. I actually think the orange is going to be good because I've got a lot of green in here. And I think we do the herringbone in the orange and then do the straight stitching in this green. I think that's going to work great. So that's what we're going to do. So I have my eyeglasses, my scissors, and my thimble. So I think we talked in the last episode about needling the thread. I don't usually fold over the thread for this. I just pinch it so it's barely visible. And I orient my needle so the eye is straight up. And then I just slide it over that thread. And then I grab that and pull it through. And for me, it works really well. Now, when I looked at that seam in the book, it's very much at a right angle. And because I'm not butting up against any other seam here, I can just stitch. I don't have to think too much about it. So I'm just going to start this in, and I've already drawn my line where I squared off the corners. I am going to start outside of that. And I also want to kind of keep an eye on this one because I want to do it roughly the same size. So if I'm looking at this, this is one of those places where occasionally I'll say, maybe it is better if I put a little light mark on there. Let me see if I can find the purple erasable pen. I'm going to take my little 6-inch quilting ruler and see how far to each side of that seam I went. So it's about a 1/2 inch total from side to side. See how I did this one so it sat on top of the seam? I think I'm going to do that here because we have all of this going on here and I don't want to interfere with that. So I think if the stitching is all up here, it'll actually be better. And I think I'm going to mark a line because I want this one to be really even on the top. So the seam is my bottom line. It actually curves a little bit. There's kind of a lot of excess fabric in there, but it seems like it irons out. So this line may not be perfectly straight, but we'll start there. I think I'm going to do this in sections as it's definitely is curving somewhat. Alright, and so this is the air erasable, so it is going to fade while I work. This one's going to be right angles, so I can use my ruler as a guide here if I want. We're just going to pick that, come straight up that way and over and back. And once I get my first ones established, then I don't need to do that again. I just want to establish that I'm getting the angle correct. There we go. And then I've pulled this too tight. I can see that already. I found that when I was working up here, it was easy to pull it too tight on this fabric. So now I just keep this thread and this one parallel to one another. And I'm going to just stitch on my line, try and take the same length of stitch back through there. This is one where if you're working without a hoop, it's really helpful to be on a hard surface because I can really watch the tension on that. And now I just am parallel to that one. And so I'm just eyeballing it. And on the bottom side, I'm actually stitching just on the far side of that seam. There. And so now if I just eyeball it and keep it, it should be good. And by keeping that top line nice and straight, that also will do a great job of helping it look nice and even. So yeah, this won't take too long. So it is the middle of October. It's the day of our annular eclipse. So I was out this morning taking some photos of the light on the ground. And actually the best pictures I got were in my kitchen where the sun was shining in through the window and the little light holes through the geraniums on the windowsill. You could see the pattern of the eclipse worked better than the pinhole camera that I tried to set up. So that was fun. I always enjoy watching stuff like that. I didn't get the special glasses or anything to watch it this time around, like we did a few years ago in 2017. But I always am intrigued by these celestial events. What else have I been doing? So I was able to pick up a whole bunch of shifts at the garden center this week, which has been wonderful. Really am grateful for that. That's not right. It's not right. I try and fix it while I see it. It was just about 1/8 of an inch over too far. The other nice thing that's happened for me in the last few weeks is that I got to go to South Dakota to get together with all the cousins on my dad's side of the family and spend time together and reminiscing and just seeing those much loved faces. I ran out of length on this thread. We haven't had a chance to just get together that wasn't around a funeral in quite a long time, and so it was just a wonderful blessing. Oh gosh, I am just not getting my proportions right here, folks. All right, so that's been pretty quick here. I don't think we've been on this more than 20 minutes or so. All right, and so now I'm going to do our straight one. So I need to decide, do I want that bright one or do I want this duller one? I think I like the duller one better. That surprised me because I think I've got this one here, I think. And I think that's why I like this one. So let's do that. Fall is coming on pretty good here. I've done some more garden cleanup and cut a huge bouquet of cosmos and some of the vanilla sunflowers. Now I have to look at that picture again. So this comes down to that lower intersection, so it doesn't go all the way out. So that one's relatively easy to eyeball, so we'll keep going with that. And these are straight stitches, so they're really going to be big back stitches for me. I'll come back to that one. this one. I think this one's actually almost done better with a stab stitch. I think it's easier to be accurate in where I get those ends. My garden is pretty much ready for colder weather. I do still have a few bulbs to plant. I had planted a bunch of daffodils and crocus, and now I have a bunch of tulips and some snowflakes to put in. I always wanted to grow the snowflakes, and I finally remembered this year when the bulbs were still available. That was fun. I'm hoping they grow well here. So between that quick trip to South Dakota and working at the garden center and working in my garden, I've not done a whole lot else this week other than video editing and getting the last episode of Stitching Rambles out. So I think I'm about 2 weeks off from filming to when they're published. But we're having a lovely autumn here. I'm looking forward to the slightly cooler weather. I'm kind of hoping the snow holds off for at least another month or two. So I'm really glad I did this on the beige side of this. I think that if I had done it down here, it would have really weighted that in, and that helps bring it up into that. So that was a good decision. And you can see my purple pen is already disappearing pretty well. If you live in a more humid climate than I do, it'll probably disappear a little faster. And you can also use water to help it disappear. And the truth is, because I don't know what the fiber content of that is, I probably should have checked it first, but I did not. I'm guessing it's a polyester or acetate lining material. That's my guess. I also have been putting out some fall decorations around the house. It's been pretty simple this year. I find the older I get, the less I like having out. I keep some table runners and stuff on a couple of tables and dressers, and I changed from the bright white ones to ecru ones and focused on some greenery. And for Halloween, I've got my black cat that I did a couple years ago. Actually, it's probably more than a couple years ago. I think I did that in 2016 or 17. And I have a little collection of Halloween black cat stuff that I put out. I always have loved mice. I started collecting those when I was a kid. While most of those were lost in our house fire, I don't have much of that left. There were little odds and ends that got replaced over the years, so I put a few little mice in amongst the black cats as well. That's pretty much all I have out right now. Almost done with the stitching here. That is the last of that stitching to go on. And get the knot in there, and then we'll take a look. When we looked at that stitch in the book, let's go back to it real quick. This has this little crossover piece. So let's do that next, and then we'll look at beads. So how would it be if I do those little crossovers in that metallic? And that'll bring just a little bit in. I think that might actually be good. So let me do that. This is one when I thread, because it's got the metallic one plus another thread with it, I'm going to fold it over to make a firmer end to put through the needle, and I thread it the same way. So it's metallic, so I'm going to work with shorter lengths on this. Yeah, I think that'll work. Then I'm just going to work side to side. So go on top. Whoops. Boy, that fabric just pulls so easily. Let's see if we can get a better handle on this here. Yeah, I think that works. It gives it just a little bit of bling. I do find it helpful to turn my fabric a lot as I work. I think my stitches tend to get more even that way on some of these. Helps me see what I'm doing better, be more consistent. And that way I can always work with my needle going in the right direction for me. Again, that's one of those things that everybody finds it easier to work a little differently, and so you just have to adapt. That's too tight too. There we go. Now this thread's actually holding up really well. I'm grateful for that. Look at that. I thought I was doing a shorter length of thread, and I have enough, barely, to finish this. And still enough to make my knot. That's even more amazing. Usually when I run that close, I don't have enough thread left to make my knot. What do you think? And how do you think that balances so far with this other end? I think that's actually looking pretty good. I'm really happy with that. And so now I do have beads down here, so I need to figure out what. And I'm actually looking these. What beads are those? Here are these. This is the opaque ones. I don't think they're dark enough. Little trick, I just lick my finger and my bead sticks to it enough to pick it up. I don't know that I want to do a metallic there. If I did, I'd probably use those. Let's try these. A couple of these. Yeah, I don't think they're a whole lot better. Let's look at these. Depending on the light you see them in, they can be either green or sort of a bronze. Here, I think this is darker than what I want on here. I don't think that's really going to go. So I'm going to put those back. So I do have these green ones. And these are sort of an interesting green metallic. Well, so far I like that one the best of any of them that I've tried. I'm not sold on those yet. We talked about these gold ones. Now, I actually like those. We did use them here though. I have these bronze ones. I don't know that I've used the bigger ones anywhere on this. And it's not that I have to use the same thing all the time, but I kind of like having those things that carry through. Now I do have these. What about those? They're a bigger bead. So what do you like best? The gold, these coppery big beads, or these bronzy green ones? I am not sure what I like there. Now I have one other possibility. Let's see here. These are orangey, and I'm looking at, they're kind of yellow orange. I don't like those. So we're not going to do gold ones. Pretty sure we're not going to do those. Let's try a couple of these bronzy ones and then we'll see. Well, in seeing that, I either like these or these. So let's try another trick. What if we do both? No, I don't like that. I just don't know here. I'm not having a whole lot of success figuring this out. Let's try this one. This one is a clear yellow with a green center. I'm just not sure they're dark enough to really... I'm leaning to the little bronze ones. Let's just go with the bronze ones. Let's do it. I can sit here all day making up my mind, or I can just get stitching and get it done. So let's get these little bronze ones out, get a bead tray. So we're just going at the peak of each of these green straight stitches. And I'm just going to go straight out from there. I do like the way this seam looks though. I think that was a good decision. I'm happy with it. And I'm happy with the way these beads are looking. Needing to watch how tight I pull that thread. I just want to say a huge thank you to all of you who watch on a regular basis, and for those who give me a like and who subscribe. It just means such a big difference for the channel, and I am deeply appreciative of each and every one of you that shows up to watch these. One more bead. I'm down to my last bit of thread. We'll see how well I can make a knot with this. So last bead stitched on. Oh, we're going to just make that knot. I don't think I'm going to make my doubled knot out of that thread. It's just too short. Again, it's only my beading thread I do that with. Oh. That was not what I intended to do. Oh my gosh. I was going to put them back so I didn't spill them. This is the way it goes some days. This project is completely stitched. You can see it's definitely not square, and I actually think this line is off a little bit. So I need to play with this and see if I can get this piece really squared out before I finish it. I'm really happy with how it turned out. In the next Stitching Rambles, I hope to show you the finished product. I think we're going to call it a day for now. Well, thank you so much for following along with me today on this project. For me, this is a huge win to get a project almost finished. We still have to do the finishing work, but that I'm hopefully going to have done by the time I do the next Stitching Ramble. I can't wait to get going on the next project, which, if you remember right from a few weeks ago, is this autumn bell pull. I think I'm just showing you the back side. Happy stitching! I'll see you in the next video.